Some faces are out, some new faces are in. Changes to the Detroit Lions coaching staff, I'm sure we're all aware, have taken place in the last 48 hours. It's quite potential that there could be other changes in the foreseeable future as Aaron Glenn, among others, get interviews for other positions. So in today's Lions Talk Live, we're going to talk about that just a little bit, but I also want to get into why the Detroit Lions really need to be careful this offseason leading into 2023. So let's talk about both these topics and maybe just a little bit more in today's Lions Talk Live. Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host once again, Dan Thornton, and I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in this Friday to Lions Talk Live. We're going to dive into a topic that I think we all need to be careful with and understand where the Detroit Lions are as a franchise. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't yet subscribed to Lions Talk Live, please consider doing so. It'll only take a second, maybe a second and a half, to hit the subscription button, maybe leave a thumbs up, and if you got a comment or two, go ahead and throw it in the section below. Now, what am I talking about when I say we need to be careful with the Detroit Lions? I'll summarize with this. It's easy to be the hunter, it's harder to be the hunted. And I think that's what the Detroit Lions are going to go into this offseason, especially if they have a good free agency and draft. They're going to have a lot more media attention around them because of the way they ended the year, plus some of their charismatic personalities on the team, plus the coaching staff. So all this builds up expectations. And as most of you know, I've coached for over 4 decades, 33 years now, various different sports. And here's one thing I do believe to the bottom of my heart. When there are no expectations for your team, it's easy to catch people off guard. It's easy to put them back on their heels. And it's easy to snatch victories from teams that are unsuspecting. But it's a little bit harder when everybody's coming at you when you're the big dog. When you're a team with high expectations, teams that aren't as anticipated going into the season, or maybe they're having a season in 2023, more often than not are going to step up and recognize if they get a win against you, how much better they'll feel about themselves, their season looks, etc., etc. When you're the person everybody's targeting, they're going to give you their best game every night. And that's one thing I do believe the Detroit Lions are going to have to show and prove early next year that they can handle that pressure. We all can remember in 2022, the Lions had some buildup going into the last season. They had Hard Knocks and all these other different expectations that this was going to be a turnaround season. I'm sure we all also remember, that 1-6 start, things kind of spiraling out of control, injuries happening, coaches or one coach getting replaced, etc., etc. It wasn't until really almost halfway through the season when we were 1-6 that you could see a lot of the players starting to develop, the coaches improve, and instead of being the hunted, we became the hunters chasing the big dogs. We worked our way up the charts. We got some unexpected wins, although probably, I guess you could say every win was unexpected when you were 1-6, but I think you get the gist. And that's something we're going to have to see from this team that they can handle in 2023. While we'd all like to say, hey, well, it's up to the coaching staff to handle those metrics, make sure the team's prepared, etc. And there is a lot of truth to that. But I'm also going to throw you at some coaching wisdom here. It also comes down in largely, and this is just my opinion, how players respond to that. Are they still as hungry as they were when they were 1-6 and, hey, I got to save some face. Hey, I'm playing for a contract next year. I've got pride. I've got to push this team forward, whatever it may be. There's a phrase I love to use in coaching, and it's called this: victory has defeated you. There are a lot of times in team sports when you can see a team's had success and they forgot what made them successful. The work they used to put in, the grind, the attention to details, whatever you want to look at, it's more often than not a combination of these things that lead them to success. But once you become successful, you no longer feel like you need to do all that work like you once did. And that's where I really want to see from the players as well as the coaching staff. Next year, can you come out of the gate strong? In the middle of the season, once it starts getting to the grind aspect of the season, the newness of the year is over, some of the big games maybe early in the year are over, and now you're getting into the dog part of the season where, the playoffs are still ways away, maybe the quest for a divisional crown's a ways away. Are you still going to do all that little grunt work that made you great? So as we analyze this, and who knows what's going to happen with the team's roster as far as free agency, with whether or not there'll be any more coaching turnover, etc. But let's start at the top, and let's start with Motor City Dan. Is he going to still put in the hours that he's done these first 2 years in order to keep the team going? I'm inclined to say yes. Same with a lot of the other coaches. I will say this. We talked in the opener about the Lions losing coaches. Well, Deuce Staley, as we all know, is gone from our program down to the Carolina Panthers, and I get it. It's closer to his family. He's got some family with some health issues, especially his mother. I understand that. I don't yet know the role he took on there, but I'm going to assume it's also a promotion, and not just in details, but also pay. So that's part of coaching. Hey, it's a career. If you can get a promotion at your job and get paid more for something you love, most of us are going to take those jobs. What we are going to lose with him, though, in my opinion, is somebody, especially if you watch HBO Hard Knocks, he grinds. He comes at it every day in practice, and I have no doubt he was the same way as a player. It's just who he is internally as a person, his emotional makeup. So because of that, this to me is somebody they really need to replace, which is why I was very glad to see them add someone like Dre Bly to the staff. Outside of looking at how Motor City Dan works, look at Aaron Glenn. I think he is a fiery person. I think he's got a lot of drive and determination, but he's also a little bit more reserved personality, in my opinion, from the limited experiences I have around him, versus Staley. Staley, I think, is far more in your face, far more vocal, or Glenn, a little bit more internalized. Ben Johnson, you've heard me analyze him before on Lions Talk Live. I think he's great at what he does. I do not think he's going to be the guy leading the rah-rah speech at halftime or anything like that to galvanize a team, find some inner energy in them, and drive them through a wall. Some of the other coaches I don't know as well, so I can't analyze them, and I shouldn't because I don't know them. But that will be the greatest challenge, in my opinion, from the coaching staff going forward. Now, let's analyze some of the players and leadership roles for us. Let's start at the top with Jared Goff. That's your quarterback. That's your general, whatever you want to say, person under center. One of the problems I have with Jared Goff, even though I think he did have a great season, I think he was highly undervalued coming out of LA to Detroit. But one thing he shares in common with Matt Stafford that I personally don't like as far as a quarterback or leader of your team is their personality type. I don't think he shows a lot of emotion. I don't think he's going to express that self to players and try to get them on board. I could be totally wrong, but from what I've seen of how he uses verbiage, his body language, things of this sort, I can tell you this, he's pretty much ho-hum, not a whole lot different than Matt Stafford. Neither one of them, I think, are going to do a lot to trigger emotional responses from their teammates, at least not the majority of the time. So if we can say that this with Goff, he's neither going to hurt you nor help you in that regard. We've got to find some players on the team that are vocal leaders, that will demand more, especially of younger players. This team is mostly made up of going to be first or second year players. Now you're going to add an impactful rookie class too. So who's going to be in positions of authority to help push these guys forward, to make sure throughout preseason, in the early part of the season, and then like we talked before with the coaches, in the dog part of the season, the middle part, who's going to keep these guys on point, on target, and improving? We'll start by analyzing the offensive side first, and to me, if the Lions are able to re-sign him, it's going to be Jamal Williams. I don't think that would be a surprise to anybody. I think he fits the bill. He's got the leadership qualities. He has enough presence in the game offensively to command some respect and demand attention for details. This is a guy who wants to win. This is a guy who's highly passionate, and he will get in people's faces, just like a Deuce Staley, and demand respect and success from everybody on board. So he's an ideal leader. Too bad he's not a quarterback, but it is what it is. And that's no shot on Goff. It's just who he is. So we need to find other people on the offensive side of the ball that will help support Williams on that push. This is, of course, assuming he is resigned. I think, Penei Sewell's going to step up. I would love to see Taylor Deckard step up. It's just, again, sort of like Goff. I don't know if he's got the personality traits to make that really happen. Wide receiver core, I don't see enough of them to really be able to say this guy is or isn't that. But from what I can say, out of the limited knowledge I have out of the rest of the meaningful people on offense, there really isn't another galvanizing leader out there. Now, let's look at the defensive side of the ball. As we get ready for free agency, one thing I would say the Lions have a sorely needed component on the defensive side of the ball is that leadership quality. If I had to look at the entire team here today and say, hey, here's without a doubt the leader on the team, it's Isaiah Buggs. And I love Buggs to death. I think he is highly vocal. I think he's got the right personality traits, and I think he's the type of person that can, sort of like Jamal Williams, get a team to rah-rah together and focus. The problem with Buggs is his position on the team. He's not strong enough from a talent standpoint where a lot of the better players who happen to be first or second year players on that defense, let alone whoever we bring in on the rookie class, are going to have meaningful interaction with him and respect. And it's not that they will disrespect him, but because he doesn't go above them as far as a talent level, it's going to be hard for a lot of players to have the same type of view and care for his words as, say, somebody, like a Ray Lewis, somebody who's one of the best players ever, let alone one of the best players on your team or unit. So this offseason, I'm not sure if you can bring in that guy or develop the guy from who's out there on the field. You think about some of the older players on the defense, and who are they? Jeff Okudah, again, same problem as Buggs. I don't think he's strong enough from a standpoint of skills to demand that attention. Perhaps somebody like Aiden Hutchinson can step up, but again, when we're talking about personality types, at least his rookie season, I don't think you see enough of those traits out there where he's going to be the person in control the vast majority of the time, keeping people in line. So could it be somebody else? I will say this, from what little I've seen of James Houston talk, I think he could be that person. But I think you're going to have to wait another year or two for him to grow into that. You're asking somebody to do something that maybe they don't inherently do, but he does have a lot of the characteristics out there. And again, maybe Hutchinson will as well. If you could get those two guys to fill that leadership role on the defense, I think there you've got some strong building blocks to have people, some of your best players, lead by example and get the younger and other players to follow suit. If you can do that, the Detroit Lions start to have their strong makeup for a team that not only could win a bunch of games in 2023, make the playoffs, and make a playoff push. When we talked about the free agency targets in one Lions Talk Live video last week, I brought up someone like a Patrick Peterson and Levante David. A lot of people, I get because of their age, you're not exactly thrilled about bringing them in, but look at their personality types. Look at the type of players they are. And for what you want to say about Levante David, consider this. In the last 4 years in the NFL, name the best linebacker in coverage. That's right. It's Old Man David. Even last year, he led the league in coverage abilities and ratings. What do the Lions historically struggle with in the last 30 years from the linebacker position? Coverage skills from linebackers. So he did have one of his top 3 seasons statistically this past year in 2022. Adding him on with some leadership abilities, with some vocality, coverage skills, and maybe a little bit more limited role, I think would be really ideal for this team. But going forward, I'll also throw this idea at you guys in regards to the difference between coaches leading and players leading. At some point in the season, some point if you've had a coach for a significant amount of time, the rah-rahness, all the coach speak, the speeches, whatever it may be, you're only going to be human if at some point it's less and less impactful, unless it's leading into some big game or whatever where emotions are just galvanizing and rising up. You have to have some people that are your contemporaries around you, that are your fellow players, that lead by example. If your leaders can't get the average player to supersede what they want to do, then your leaders are probably actually impacting the team in a negative way. That's where I think the Lions really need to pay attention to things this offseason. So I'm not going to keep going on with the video. I think you got the ideas of it. Let me know in the comment section below if you had to pick out somebody to be the leader or a couple of guys to be the leaders on offense and defense, who would you pick out? If we brought in somebody via free agency, is there anybody you'd like to target? So a slower news day. I'm sure you guys all heard from 20 other different channels or newspapers or YouTube videos about the coaching moves. I like the addition of Dre Bly. I understand why Deuce Staley had to leave. Hopefully we get to keep Aaron Glenn, but if he gets a head coaching job, he should take it, in my opinion. They don't come around very often, and only 32 humans on the planet get one. You could be one of them. So if he gets it, good luck to him. All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of Lions Talk Live. Again, slower day with it being Friday and the offseason to boot. I hope you all have a great weekend. I'll try to get in here on maybe Saturday or Sunday with another video, try to throw something at you guys. But if I can't, please consider subscribing to Lions Talk Live. It only takes you a second and a half to hit that subscription button, thumbs up, and leave some thoughts down below. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you all next time on Lions Talk Live.